Hi, everybody. This week, our rune cast focuses on half-month rune Algiz, and we stay in Algiz through the 12th of February. Algiz is a curious rune. I feel a particular affinity to this one because I feel like it, more than most of the others, evokes animism. We know that in the Anglo-Saxon poem, Algiz is referenced as a grass. It's called a sedge grass or an elk sedge. And there's a lot of overlap that I'm not entirely sure where it comes from. I'm not even entirely sure if it's correct. I'm not the person who can debate that. But there's an association because this is an elk sedge grass that means elk are also present. And where I go with that is this sense of ecosystem looking after itself. The elk is pokey. You mess with it, it's territorial. It's not going to like that. This grass, by virtue of just being there, is pokey. You step wrong, it's not going to feel good. You're not going to like that. That is where the sense of protection in this rune comes from. I like to take that a little bit deeper to an animistic perspective and evoke that as entire relationship to ecosystem. What I mean by that is we have to curate relationship to ecosystem. Just because we know the state bird is cardinal doesn't mean I'm in great relationship with cardinal. Doesn't even mean cardinal cares about me at all. It definitely doesn't mean that I'm necessarily in good relationship with my ecosystem. So this is why we start local. This is why we start with what's in between you and the mailbox in cultivating relationship in the intensive that I teach and in the Quest series that I teach. So the idea is when we come into deeper relationship with who is actually in our ecosystem, taking the time to invest in those relationships, not just know it, but invest in those relationships, make offerings, be present, sing to them, whatever you can do to contribute to that, and be receptive to what you get back out of it. This cultivation of relationship, from my perspective as an animist, is what becomes the protection. And when you look at it that way, there's a whole other level of Algiz that becomes evident. It's not just calling on this rune for protection. It's not just drawing this rune as a sigil for protection. It's learning to be in relationship with your place, so much so that that place protects you no matter where you are. Even when you travel, it becomes calling card, it becomes protection. And that is what I feel like the strength of Algiz is, particularly because this rune is the second to last rune in the second Eartt. It's interesting to me. We've come through the second Eartt up to this point in chaos, more or less. We've had massive upheaval. We've had to figure out our own identity as a result of that upheaval. We've had to figure out how to cultivate relationship to integrate potentially that new identity, potential the new way of being because of the huge change. We bump into other people's agency. We bump into weird and orlog along the way. We have to figure out who we are, what we're doing, how we're doing it, so that we don't hurt other people, so that we don't hurt ourselves, and so that we are conscientious of their agency and how we're impacted by it also. And then we come to this. We come to ecosystem. I think it's important to sit and think about why this rune is situated after all of that. And it's situated right before the pay it forward rune. I think it's also important to witness Algiz in its placement in our planetary ecosystem relationship in this calendar. And of course, there are many runic calendars. In this calendar, Algiz is the rune of the vernal cross quarter. Some people call it Imbolc, some people call it Candlemas. For some people, this is this thing, and the timing of this thing is a bit curious. It's not not entirely the same for everybody, but the idea that this rune comes at the end of the dark time. This rune comes at the close of the wild hunt. So with this rune in our calendric season, we're moving into a time of revitalization. We're moving into the point where we need to kind of understand or start formulating a plan of what we're going to do with everything that we've taken from our time in the darkness. We've done all this death working. We've done all this shedding and releasing. And this particular dark time was really difficult for a lot of people, just myself included, just exceptionally difficult and frankly dark, which I feel like is a bigger indication of the need of death work. And now, in this timing, at this point in the equinox, we're looking at what we're going to do with who we are on the other side of that initiation, at the end of that dark time season. Who are we and what are we going to do with it? And quite possibly, how does our ecosystem show up with us? What can we learn from it? Like, it has gone through this transition as well. How do we watch what it does in its wisdom and reflect that in our own lives? I think that could be a really important teacher this week. Let's see what rune best helps us work with Algiz this week. We have Nauthiz, which is need. Some people define that as constraint. We had a big conversation about this rune recently, didn't we? So Nauthiz is this experience of taking what we know, like being very realistic with ourselves about where we are, what we're doing, what our situation is, and figuring out how we're going to present that to the rituals that we most need to help us grow into what we're being asked to grow into, to facilitate a movement that we need. I think need is key, right? What do you need? Can you identify that? And when you identify that, what rituals help you be in relationship with that need in such a way that you can figure out how to meet it, or that possibly it can't be met. And so then you have some other work that you have to do. That might be grief work. There might be shadow work. There might be just a deep needing to sit with this need and understand what it's reflecting about other aspects of your life. If you can't meet that need, can someone else? And does that mean that there are other people that you need to bring on board to help you with that? I think a possibility with what Nauthiz could be saying, again, is our ecosystem is deeply involved in ritual. Whether we make that conscious connection or we do not, the elements of our ecosystem are what evoke the rituals that we bring into our sacred space. Like, the elements are what make it do. The idea behind ritual, and I'm not saying this is 100%, but I would say 85 maybe-ish percent, we are asked to do something, whether it's in that sacred space or after that sacred space is closed. We have medicine that we have to bring back. We have to do something with what we learned, what we gained, what we received in that sacred space. And the doing with is not mental. It is not at that higher processing level. It is not liminal or imaginal. It must also be in form. It must be acted out in your behavior. It must be spoken, sung, danced, carved, painted, sung. I said that already, but it's a go-to. You are the instrument. It can be written out. It can be built. It is an action that you have to take. It could be a donation that you make to a fund that supports the medicine you were given. But what I feel we're being asked to do by Nauthiz for Algiz is to make that ecosystem relationship concrete. It again can't just be I am in liminal space with my ecosystem. Your ecosystem has real needs, and figure out how you can show up in that. I think a flip side is also having very good fluidity in expressing your needs to your ecosystem. That's one of the key places I feel like pagan leaning people fall off. One of them is consistency of practice. The other is stating what's needed, not asking for help, not asking for what you need, not asking for my need to be magically derived and met by some unseen party. It is stating what you need with the clarity that you can. That to me is the missing piece of the whole you create your own reality thing. Yes, the state it like you would order food from a menu is so on point. One of the best little tidbits I ever gained in my magical education. But the clarity of understanding what you need so that you can state it, that's Ansu stuff. That's a big, big deal. And our ecosystem is manifestation 101. If your ecosystem is capable of anything at all, it is manifesting what it needs. And what it needs changes based on season, based on timing, based on resources. And the lesson in that is so do you. But you must involve your ecosystem by stating what you need to it for that to happen. All right, so let's move into the direction that is ultimately creating the container that we work in with these runes this week. And you know what? It is what it is. I stand up and move through the directions where I can feel them in my body, and where I can't, I just kind of face them from where I'm sitting, because that's what it's like when you deal with chronic stuff. So let's see who's speaking and holding space for us this week. I keep getting south. I love these little dwarves, literally Sudre. This is back or behind in my cosmology. I never know where to put them though. I'll start here. You might move around. So Sudre is the direction of what has come to pass in my cosmology. It would be appropriate for you to explore what that direction means in your cosmology. That means that it is the direction of the ancestors. It's the direction of the beings who have your back. They literally have done this experience before. They've done this path before. They have hardcore data that they can make available to you to help you in your iteration of this experience and path. But of course, you need to state that you need their help. You need to activate them to get on the scene. They are not just automatically capable of discerning what you need and delivering it. Maybe they can Shazam that sometimes, but that's special. The onus is on us, again, to know what we need and to state to the party who can provide it that we need it. And then we stay with consistency, making offerings to that being, to ecosystem, or perhaps to direction, to ancestors, to be able to fulfill it for us. The other aspect of Sudre for me is that's where the janitors live. That's where the death walkers live. That's where the beings who consume the dead matter and sweep out the debris that's no longer needed at every level, not just internal cosmology, mind, body, soul, but the whole taxonomy of the soul. For me, that's Philia, it's Valkyrie, it's Kinphilia, the whole deal, leak, all of it. So that there's potential for that to happen when you work with the direction of South in my cosmology. There's also the beings who recycle in your ecosystem. Who are they? Do you know who they are? Is that mycelium network? Is that other beings, the bacteria? This week, working with South is a way to extend the experience of death walking. It is year round, right? It's not just through the winter, through late autumn and winter. It's year round, and coming into awareness of the finesse of how different seasons hold death work, how they can support you in death work, and in this case, how South, Sudre, behind could support you in sweeping your life clean, maybe with a continuous ritual that you do. Next up, we have the element that is the agent that actually helps us be in relationship with ecosystem and get our needs fulfilled. It's the element that helps us in this container that Sudre has created be able to alchemize whatever we need to meet our needs. Interesting. Things with faces. I have plastic. This, what is he called? I can't remember. Little people dog? I love those still. So plastic is one of those things that a lot of people balk at. They're really angry at plastic. I am alive because of plastic. I continue to be alive because of plastic. So I can only be so angry. But I get it. I get why people look at plastic and they can't see it as sacred. They can't see it as holy because it's the perfect illustration of everything we've done wrong as humans. There's a lot around plastic, and there were many things I took into consideration when I really sat with it as whether it would be an element in my cosmology. It came to me for a while, and I was like, I just don't know. What it came down to is when we look at plastic, we're looking at the dinosaurs. We are looking at our distant past. We're also looking at the height of modernity. We're looking at our capacity to be so impatient that we needed to preserve things a new way, and to be so patient that we figured out how to use this remnant of the dinosaurs to save people's lives. We look at it and we see how we don't recycle. We don't potentially take care of the planet as well as we could as a result of having plastic. I don't know if that's plastic's fault, though. I don't think it is. So plastic brings up all these aspects of potential. Who have we been? Who are we now? Who could we be? And what could we create from all of that, the summary of all of that can benefit the planet? Could we do plastic better? I think so. Does plastic want to be better? I don't know. Probably. Don't we all? I mean, aren't we all in some way leaning toward a better version of ourselves, however we conceive that to be? And I think that's what plastic brings up this week. This question of what is my purpose? What am I doing here? And how am I fulfilling it in a way that isn't just meeting an immediate need for me, but is allowing me to step into the collective transpersonal of myself to make sure that it's meeting the needs of others who have that need as well. I'm going to sit with what season is kind of holding the tone for us this week, the overall approach we can take, the tone of how we move. That is what season represents. And I keep like drawing myself back to the 4 seasons, but the one that I'm actually feeling is what I consider a 5th season in the region that I live. And it's very specific. I noticed it first when I was 14 years old. I wrote a poem about it. And it's because the sunsets are really different here this time of year. They're the most colorful. They have the most color diversity represented, and often the most brightness represented. And so I'm going to go with the fifth season. I don't know what its name is. And I represent it with this of the buttons. I love those buttons because it has all the color. Like it has this overtone that you could say, well, that's autumn. But here, those color, that layout, that whole palette is now, this time of year. And what I feel like that fifth season represents is your willingness to carve out what you need. Like just your willingness to just say, it doesn't fit the mold. It doesn't fit what I expected it would be or anybody else for the most part. And yet here it is. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that meets the need. Here's the need and the way it describes itself. I think it could be either or both of those things. And having the freedom and trust and confidence in yourself to just go with it. And that tone is in this time frame of the vernal equinox, the cross quarter. And so it has this sense of slow building, slowly gaining momentum. We're still not running, but we're not on the couch either. We're planning and we're laying some things out for how we need them to be and what we plan for the coming warm season, at least in the north. And that feels appropriate for right now. When I ask what helping spirit is with us this week, the one that I feel pretty much immediately, and I'm kind of like double checking, is the spirit of Earth itself. I know a lot of people attribute Earth as mother. I'm not sure that polarity is the same for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. If that's not the way Earth spirit shows up for you, that's okay. That's how you experience it. I typically experience it as a feminine energy and not in a form, if that makes any sense at all. To me, the whole genderification of spiritual things is only limited to this sphere. I don't experience it beyond Earth soul, like way out in the beyond. I don't experience gender. And the fact that I do, I question it hard because I don't feel gender for myself, but I question it because it doesn't mean that other beings don't. It doesn't mean that they are what I think they are. So I hold that carefully and offer it to you the way that you experience it. I am experiencing this manifestation of Earth Spirit as very archetypally mother and nurturing. And more than that, I'm experiencing it as a full community, as its own collective, and it knows what it needs. And that's pretty significant to my cosmology. Ask me about the whole creation thing sometime. That's a rabbit hole. But Earth has been used by beyond Earth beings, by humans, in a way that has pushed a lot of things out of balance. And so I feel like the Earth spirit right now is going through, it's like molting. It's going through its own dark time, and coming out in process, and the process isn't finished yet. And I feel like that contributes to some of the disarray that we're feeling right now. Not just what humans have done to contribute to chaos on the planet, pretty much all of the planet, but that is a reflection into the unseen of this realm and beyond this realm. And there's a lot going on. And Earth is seeking new stability because of that. And that stability has not been found yet. So if you're kind of sitting around thinking, why can't I get my shit straight? Why can't I find stability? You're not alone. And the whole planet is going through that process. And I feel like that's a really sweet reminder. It's huge when you have elders who can say, I am in flux and I don't know where this is going. when you have elders who can admit their vulnerability and that they don't have the answers, and watching them show up for the process, that's what Earth Soul seems to be presenting right now. Like, quite possibly in an eldering way that many of us have never really witnessed before. When we approach the Galder of this rune cast, we're working with Algiz and Nauthiz. Curious that they're both second ed. With Algiz, we have some different pronunciations. I hear it several different ways. We have Algiz or Eol, Algi, El, Elha, 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 Elwa. And with Nauthiz, we have Now, Naud, Naudi, Nid, Nod. When you put these together, the way that they need to come through your body is exactly what's needed. There's not necessarily a right or wrong. I realize there is a lot of conjecture around that, and that's okay. And you're still allowed to figure out how you're in relationship with it and take it from there. This is how this Galder came together for me. El Hanid, 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 El Hanid. I can't tell you how much my neurodivergence did not want to do the cadence that way. I like even things, even though even can come in groups of three, a whole other thing. The fact that the syllables wanted to be distinct and different for each Galder, it was important because I felt it immediately when I just kind of asked for it to enter my body, but my brain was just like, I don't like that. So when I could relax into it, I had this sense of pulse, of perhaps even Schumann resonance, this experience of what beats in me beats in Earth. And everything in this dimensional planetary layer, and maybe a little bit beyond it. I don't know. I don't have that piece. But if you feel it beyond it, that absolutely. I felt it as this really strong alignment of my spine, thus the energetics of my spine, into the energetics of Earth. Like literally feet on the ground. My bones are this planet's bones. And the resonance of knowing that and having the sound vibrate through my body, I felt like I was connected into all these spinal and stone networks all through the planet. That was amazing. Felt like an antenna, so to speak. And I felt like if I kept doing the Galder, it would tap me into resonances beyond the planet. So almost kind of sort of trance posture-ish with sound. I would love to hear how this Galder shapes up for you. I would love to hear how you're approaching this cross quarter. And I wish you the best. Thank you.